My guest today is an advocate, he's an activist, and he is the creator of the Love Army. Barrett Pall has been using social media to educate others about everything from sexual assault to misogyny to racism and antisemitism. He's also someone who has humbled himself, learned from his past mistakes, recognized his privilege, and vowed to consistently and constantly do better. My conversation with him was rooted in love and understanding, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk with him and hear about his work. You're listening to We Need to Talk. Barrett Pall, thank you so much for being on We Need to Talk today.
Thank you so much for having me.
As I mentioned before we even started recording, I've been following you for a while, and I just love your advocacy. I love your voice. I love your approach. And you stand up for so many groups, which I know as someone who also does that, it can get a little bit exhausting, but it's the right thing to do. But I want to know, when did your advocacy journey begin? Like, was there a specific incident or movement that really made you want to use your platform to start speaking out and educating people?
Absolutely. When I was 18 and first got to NYU, where I went to university, the very first week of school, I got involved in a protest for Darfur. And I remember feeling like this collective energy to use your voice and being so inspired and being like, I want this to be a part of my life. And then when it comes to social media and the platform that I've been able to very gratefully create and be a part of the Love Army, as I call the community that I'm a part of, it's not mine, I'm a part of it. I think the pandemic really helped me lean into the things that I had always spoken about and done a lot of offline. I don't know if you remember, but it was kind of like discouraged from, or we were discouraged from talking about the things that are, now super encouraged to talk about publicly, but it was kind of like, oh, you shouldn't tell everyone what you're doing with like nonprofits and NGOs, like you're doing it just for attention. And like people knew me as a model. So everyone was like, what is this? And I was like, well, it's a huge part of what I do in my like everyday life. Like I'd like to talk about it. And then just getting gaslit all the time was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna like just not do it. And then the pandemic happened and I was like, fuck this. Like it's socially irresponsible to not talk about all the things that are going on in the world right now. And I'm so grateful because I had left New York to go to San Diego and I was pretty much done with social media. But then it was like, how are you done when we're all stuck at home and this is a way to connect?
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that point up that we were kind of discouraged from talking about these things. Specifically, like you said, you were a model before, I'm a singer and an actress, and they're like, just focus on your art or focus on whatever your, occupation is going to be. Don't bring this in. But now it is a huge part of everybody's life. Do you feel like that shift is genuine, or do you feel like it's become kind of trendy to get involved in activism and advocacy?
I'm smiling really big because you know my feelings. I think that
I do. That's why I asked.
I think for a lot of people, it is a trend. Brands especially, it's still a lot of performative action. I've just dealt with a brand recently that I'm not going to do anything with. I'm not going to work with them. They kind of got all excited and said all these things to me. And I was like, but the ethos at the company aren't there. So like, what is this? This is just for the public to consume and be like, good job. And that's discouraging, but I do think more people are realizing that it's important to have an opinion and let your opinion be heard. I mean, in the entertainment industry, I was constantly told, like, don't be political. People want you to just be pretty, just smile, like it's easier, it's better for you. And I was like, this feels like I'm just pretending all the time. And as someone at the time I wanted to be an actor, I was like, I want to have like a genuine life at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel that ever?
Always. Always. It's just, it unfortunately does come with the territory of specifically the entertainment industry. That's always a thing. As you were talking though, when we're gonna get to a lot of the stuff that's been happening in the past week, of course, because that'll probably take up the bulk of our conversation. But for you, because watching your TikToks and watching you on Instagram, you do advocate for so many groups and you do it unapologetically and in a very genuine way. And I love that you've found a balance in a way to do that. But and as someone who is also on the educating side of activism, I talk about having the ability to hold space for so many marginalized groups. And I know so many people can't. But how are you personally able to hold space for so many people without having it be debilitating for you and also just take care of your well-being because it can get exhausting, and there are times I personally do have to hit pause because I think that we kind of have the type of following where people come to us, like you said, you have your love army group. People look to you, and I mean, my DMs blow up for people thanking me and saying they lost hope until they saw a post, and that makes me feel so good. But
Mm,
sometimes it can get overwhelming having
mm,
so many people look to you. So I'm curious how
mm.
you've managed to hold space for so many people, but also take care of yourself in the process.
It's been a journey, and I'm very honest that I've fucked up along the way.
Hmm.
I got really angry during the pandemic, like the height of the pandemic, because I just saw so many people with big platforms that weren't saying anything and continuing to post, selfies and product and all this stuff. And I was like, people are dying.
Yeah.
People are losing their homes. People are getting sick. And you're sitting here being like, let's consume more. Um, and to be quite frank, like I still go on rants, in the privacy of my own home with my partner and my friends, but I didn't want to be an angry person. I'm not an angry person. I grew up in a pretty angry home and I didn't want to perpetuate that. And I realized after kind of, taking a big step back and having my best friends be like, you're not having fun. This is not good for you. You're a shell of yourself.
Mm.
And, through the darkness, we can find greater light if we want. And I chose to look at it that way. And so I took a step back, really like did some work, got back into therapy. My therapist was super important in like helping me create better boundaries with social media because I've been online in some way since I was 19. I'm
Mm.
34. It's like more of my life has been online than off,
Yeah.
which is wild.
Yeah.
And at this point, it really comes with boundaries. And like, I don't really do a lot of creation. Like, I'll maybe consume a little, but I don't create a lot on the weekends, if at all. Sundays, I kind of turn off my phone and just like don't look at social media unless
Yeah.
something really important is going on. Um, and then I think the other thing is realizing and remembering that we do have community, like just right now, that we are there for each other to pick up the pieces when we need someone else to just help us and pass that baton. Because number one, none of us individually are going to change anything. It's all about collaboration and cooperation.
Yeah.
And number two, it's going to drain anyone if it's all the time. It's still a dance that I do with myself, being like, I have this privilege that I didn't have growing up and I want to use it, but I also need to remember that like I'm a human and I have like the need for mental health and to take a break and all these other things. And so I think it's just really remembering that collaboration is key,
Hmm.
boundaries are super important, and that we are going to be able to make change if we continue to find ways to work together
Hmm.
and lead with love. And that's
Love that.
hard. That's really hard, but I know like it's so important.
It
So,
is. It is. I saw a friend actually sent me this, and I posted it earlier today, but it was a quote that said, "Liberation is a group project." And I just
mm,
loved that. I loved that. So you talking about collaboration, that made me think of that. But one of the things that has always frustrated me
mm,
about being there for other people and trying to work together, and I talk about oppression Olympics a lot,
mm,
and the ability of marginalized groups and communities to show up for other groups and communities without there being conditions. And it's been very disappointing for me as of late to see the rise in anti-Semitism and people posting saying, but
mm,
there's always a but that follows it.
mm.
So, what has your approach been to try to help people get out of this me mentality? Because for me, I've been trying to say, hey, it shouldn't just be we only show up for people that show up for us. We should show up because it's the right thing to do. And if they decide they don't want to show up for us, fine. For me, I'm just like, then that's them. But I know I did the right thing. So I'm curious what your approach to that is.
Uh, um, for me, the big one has been to really refocus on who the common oppressor is. As a Black woman, as a queer Jewish person, we deal with the same common oppressor at the top of this patriarchy food chain. And it's
Yes.
not about the oppression Olympics. It's about how do we work together to address them, the white, able bodied, cisgender, heterosexual, wealthy man, and be like, you're not even happy and doing well in this situation. Like, do you really think Elon Musk is a happy person?
Right.
And that's where I
Right.
constantly say patriarchy hurts all of us. And I have to say, I've also been, a little disheartened to see, so many people that do exist in other marginalized groups speak negatively about other ones. And I'm like, don't you see that we're just
Yeah.
infighting and they're all laughing at us and like
Yes.
getting to create these awful podcasts where they like talk about garbage, like
And
white
get
men.
paid for them.
Yeah. Like these like Joe Rogans and he who shall not be named, Andrew Tate, like all of them
Yeah.
are like literally sitting and giggling while they're wealthy, getting the rest of us to fight with each other
Yeah.
about stuff that we shouldn't even be fighting about.
Agreed. It's one of my biggest hangups when I see any movement happening. There's always a question like, "Oh, well they're getting this. Why didn't we get this?" It's like, "Well, I'll get it if we work together."
Totally.
We
That's
absolutely all will get it if we work together. Um so yes, you did mention that you are a Jewish American. So my first question for you is how are you? How are you?
um
Because it's
thank
been a
you for
lot.
asking. Thank you for asking. I
Yes,
don't
you're
get asked
welcome.
that question often. It makes me kind of sad. Um, I think it's sad. I growing up, this is a question I've been really reckoning with and I haven't put it out there publicly, but I really want to ask people like, when was the first time you realized you were oppressed?
Mm,
Because I don't think a lot of like Christian white people really understand that one, you're not really oppressed. And two, for like me, I remember being very young, maybe like 8, and reading this book called The Cage that was about the Holocaust and really identifying like, wow,
mm,
like this could have been me so easily. Um, and I wasn't really raised with like religion, but we were definitely a Jewish family in a Christian area. So I felt anti-Semitism in ways that I didn't understand until I was even older. I mean,
mm,
even just wanting a nose job for so long and processing like where that's coming from. It's like, oh, because I have a Jewish nose. And
mm.
like, what does that even mean? And like deconstructing all the ways in which, white supremacy sits inside of us. And so as I answer this in a long way,
No, I
uh,
love it.
I'm okay. I'm better than a lot of people, and I continue to come into like a space of gratitude because that helps keep me energized and positive
Yeah.
and optimistic. But it's sad. And like, I know I was thinking about this at the gym because it's all over the news right now. I don't want to see Kanye destroyed. I don't want to see this black man be ripped apart because it's easier to do it to him than it is one of these white men.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, at the same time, we have to hold people accountable that have a platform that big. And it's not mental health anymore. This is just hateful rhetoric being spewed and normalizing it for Nazis that run around in swastikas over the 405 with signs that say, like, Kanye was right. And whether you're looking to just be clickbait or like go viral, you have to think about the actions and the consequences that come with that. And that's really fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? I love that you said that you don't want to see him ripped apart because
No,
it,
it's
I get it. Trust me, I get it. I feel like anytime something like this happens, I always do come from the place of I do want them to go sit down for a while
yes,
and think
yes,
and reflect and don't come
yes.
back from maybe 4 or 5 years, right? Think about what you're doing. I don't want anybody to get ruined. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I'm a fan of accountability, and as much as I know you are as well. So, what would you like to see happen given the inflammatory comments that he's made, given he's put more fuel into the fire of anti Semitism, which, on one hand, I'm glad that now people are aware that it is such a prevalent thing in this country and they weren't before. And it's kind of having a similar effect that George Floyd's death did, that people were like, oh, Black people haven't just been talking to hear themselves talk for this long. This is a thing. So I feel like if we're going to try to find a positive, that is the positive. People are like anti-Semitism is a real thing. But from your vantage point, what does accountability look like specifically with Kanye?
Oh man. I mean, Kanye is such an interesting subject for so many reasons,
Yeah.
right? He's been through his own struggles. His life was turned more public than I think he ever imagined when he got into the Kardashian family, who's a whole other point of conversation in a very interesting way, in my opinion. Um, he lost his mom. Like,
Yeah.
I really try to come from a sense of humanity, and that's hard. I'm not gonna lie, that's hard sometimes, especially when you have someone spewing stuff like this. But as you said, I think it's important for him to take a really long break. I think you need you the only way you're going to see the light is to realize you're in the dark. and then go, how do I come out of this with a team of people? And he has resources upon resources
Yeah.
upon resources. And so it would just be like, rather than run towards the side that's going, come here, Kanye, we want you here, right? Like these racist, xenophobe, anti-Semitic, homophobic, awful people being like, Kanye, like maybe you come over here and like just listen for a really long time
Yeah.
and then come back, because no one's no one's getting canceled. We're not killing people,
Right.
right? Like they're not going away.
Yeah.
I've had people try and cancel me for plenty of things, and I've always been like, I'm on your team. Like I want to see everyone succeed. I come
Yeah.
from an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. And I think that's a big problem, where we feel like I can't have what you have unless you don't have it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
patriarchy has told us that there has to be winners and losers. But I say this all the time, we're all losing right now. There's no winner and loser. We're all losing in this
Yeah.
system.
Yeah. And I don't think
So
people want to like reconcile with that fact and admit it, because it is hard to realize like, oh, nobody's actually winning at this moment. Well, I mean, like you said, patriarchy is, but none of us on this side are actually winning because we're being pinned against each other.
yeah, and this is the thing. Even let's say with like, again, conservative Republican people, they don't win anything when they win.
Yeah. Right.
They're not gaining like a new right that they didn't have before. They're just keeping it away from someone else. So it's like,
They're just
why?
keeping power to not do anything.
Exactly. And it's, I mean, sadly, politics have turned into a sporting event. It's like
Yeah.
ride or die for your team. No matter who the players are. I mean, I think sports are funny in that sense, where it's like people are like, this is my team. I'm like, yeah, but your team trades players consistently. So like, why is this your team? Like, like
Yeah.
one season you love this player and then they get traded and you're like, they're the worst. So I think that that's what I would like to see. I think he needs a break. I think he is
Mhm.
so deep within so much stuff. And then because of the way in which media operates to make money, and this goes for news, right? Like everything, they're just continuing to give him places to talk and just keep going. And he's like, okay, well, I still have the microphone. Like, I'm going to just keep going. And
Yeah.
then sometimes double down and make it worse. And you're like, no, like, please just like, maybe we give the microphone to like, I don't know, a Black queer Jewish woman and let her say how it's been for her. Because those people
Yeah.
exist.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting you say that because I have questioned why they keep giving him a platform. And I think Trevor Noah said something so beautiful the other day.
Love Trevor
I
Noah.
love that man. And I'm so sad that he's leaving because I feel like he is the perfect combination of intellect and comedy. He
Yes.
knows how to soften the blow of situations, but also feed you with knowledge at the same time. And he basically said that when you know someone is unwell and then they're saying all of this stuff, don't put a microphone in front of their face. And that's so true. And it's been just a press tour for Kanye, and it's just making things worse. And so, yes, the media absolutely has a lot of responsibility when it comes to this, and they're stoking the fire, absolutely.
I mean, sadly, it's the same story over and over. And I don't think Kanye sees it for what it is, because he's in the middle of it and being given a mic. But it's them using white supremacist tactics and using the
Yeah.
Black man to spew the hate that they believe,
Yeah.
and then take the brunt of the harm from it. And they'll use him and abuse him as much as they want, and then throw him away when they're done, the way they do to
Yeah.
everyone that doesn't align with what they want and need.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have Donald Trump coming out and be like, Kanye needs to calm down, you're like, what? Come on. Like, you were part of what fueled this from the very beginning.
Right. Right. I saw
So
that and was like, I shouldn't be agreeing with you right now, but
I know, I know, I
So
know.
I know I talked earlier about how you protect your well-being, just, showing up for people, but how do you protect your peace in the face of hate and vitriol? Because that's a different part of it. That's a different part of the activism and the advocacy, getting hate messages, getting anti-Semitism, I'm sure getting homophobic comments as well. So how do you protect your peace when you're dealing with that?
It's been a long journey to understand how to do this as well, especially because, as I mentioned, I was 19 the first time I like had some sort of public experience. And I remember the first like not nice comment I saw on like a model blog, and the username was like GQ style guy something. And it was like the very first Polaroid I ever took for my modeling agency. And it was put online as like a new face. And I remember being so excited because this was a blog I had seen, and it felt like the beginning of this big career. And this person was like, he was probably cute in his high school, but still has baby fat and won't go very far. And like the fact that I can still remember this is fucked.
Wow.
But I took that and I really thought someone at GQ meant that. Like I thought it was GQ, which I later went on to work with, which was super cool. But I think having this many years of experience with hate has really, in some ways, been like a destructive thing, because it, up until recently, made me go, I can handle this. I can handle the next level. I can handle more. Keep like, okay, let's go. Like, you want to keep throwing it at me? Like, I can take more than you even know, because I'm dealing with it for longer than you can imagine, from places that I thought were safe. Like, what you have to say is not going to affect me. And then I became a shell of myself, as I mentioned, and my friends were like, you need a break. And I was like,
Yeah.
these are my loved ones. These people mean this. They know me. And it was important for me to take a break. And it was something that to this day, I'm very conscious of. And the way I hold my peace in these spaces is to really remember that none of this is personal.
Yeah.
At 34, I can say this. At 19, I couldn't have said this. At 24, I couldn't have said this. Realistically, at 30, it was still kind of hard. At 34, I can really go, anyone that has anything negative to say to me, whether about me or whatever else, is projecting their own insecurities. And that's sad. And I feel for them, but I'm not going to put up with it.
Yeah.
And part of me holding my peace is to kind of smile and put out like empowerment and education, and be like, this is why this is wrong. Like, you can try and argue with it, but like, this is why this is wrong. And as you mentioned, having so many people kind of come to you and thank you, it's huge. But there's also that moment where you can be like, I have to keep going. Like, like these people need me. And it's like,
Yeah.
you need to protect you first and foremost. How do you keep it for yourself?
I mean, as I mentioned, being a mom helps because I put my focus into my daughter and my husband. So that's a very easy way to turn off. She doesn't allow me to not give her much attention anyway. But that's really how, because if I'm not in a good place, then I can't be in a good place for her. So I have to keep that in mind. And also while trying to set the example of how to be a good person, how to love people, how to advocate for others. So it is a balance, but I think when I start to get weary or I start to feel like I'm engaging too much, then the same way I have to take a break and I just have to hit pause and turn my phone off, because it is really important, because you can't show up for other people if you're not well, like you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you engage ever with the hate, and have you ever been successful in having people realize how they've been? Because I actually have, and it's probably like one in every 100, but that one makes a difference and it always sticks with me. But I definitely had someone recently apologize
Mm,
because they came looking for a fight that I did
mm,
not give them.
mm,
And they realized why they were looking for a fight and where their blind spots were. And
mm,
I still actually go back and forth with this person. Like, they ask me questions and now feel comfortable.
mm,
But it was such a humbling moment for me to feel like something I said actually made them think and
mm,
change their perspective a little bit. And I
mm.
can only imagine that you've probably had that experience as well, because you do such incredible work. So have you had that experience?
To answer the first part of the question, I definitely used to be like really bad about engaging with the hate, because I was like, what the fuck? Like, again,
Right.
I'm
Like, what
on
is
your
your problem?
team. Yeah. I mean, you know, my advocacy online really started within the gay community. And specifically, I'd say more so like for gay men, because that's where I identified and it made sense. And I was welcomed into this world when I came out, when a lot of people weren't coming out. And it was kind of like everyone loves to love you until they want to like hate you, because again, whatever the things are. And that was hard for me, because
Mhm.
I truly like just want to see everyone get along. Like, I want everything to be okay. Like, I grew up in a really angry house. And so I think in a lot of ways it kind of triggered some things for me that I don't talk about very often. Um, and then I kind of had again, another big moment where I was like, why am I giving these people attention? This is what they want.
Right.
Like, because sometimes you'd get someone like in a weird one-on-one situation and then they'd like totally change their tune and you were like, whoa, this was like a weird strategic thing that you don't even probably understand you were
Yeah.
doing, and it was like really mean. um but I've had like whole like anti-fan accounts about me where they're just like ripping me apart for everything, and that was hard, especially because I was like, I'm on y'all's team.
And also, do
um
you have a job? I'm always like surprised by the amount of effort that goes into things like that.
totally. And like, why I don't do this. I don't like hate follow anything.
Yeah,
I'm
me
like,
either.
why put your energy into something you hate so much, which then tells me you actually have some interest in it, which is again another interesting conversation when it comes to like homophobia and racism and all these other things.
Yeah.
Um, but I am grateful because I have had, not a lot, but throughout the course of my career online, people apologize. And I'm like, I'm really grateful for that. But also like that's for you to sit with. And I'm not gonna
Right.
like keep going with this. Every now and then I'll be like, thank you. That actually means a lot. Like, I am on your team. I kind of try to end on that with most people. And then, with something like TikTok, where it's just a whole other world, and my platform has gotten really big in a way that I did not see coming. More recently, I even had like someone just not apologize because they never did anything to me, but like heard me in a way that I was like, oh my God, yes, thank you. And it was a white,
Mm,
straight man. And I was like, this is who I'm like excited to see come into our space, because we
yeah.
need y'all to heal, to share your power, because we're not going to be able to just take it. Like, you really do
Yeah.
have to want to share it.
Yeah.
So knowing that there is progress being made is very exciting, and why I keep showing up.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's what keeps you going. And it's the same for me because I definitely think there are more pros than cons, but the cons can really hurt sometimes. They really, really can.
Totally. I mean, how many times do we hear creators talk about the fact that like you can get 1,000 great, we love you, you're awesome, thank you, and then it's like that one comment that's just mean that you can't like stop focusing
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So I try not to engage too much in the comment section anymore, even though we're encouraged to. I mean, everything's been gamified.
Right.
And I go in there and I like, but if someone's just kind of spewing hate at this point, I'm like, you're not looking to have a mindful conversation, and you're looking to like trigger and upset the people in here that are. So I just get rid of them and block them.
Good. That's
Yeah.
what you got to do.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, being a part of two marginalized groups, sometimes, I do have to split my efforts as a woman and as a Black woman. So for
Yes.
you, being a part of two marginalized groups, the LGBTQ community and being Jewish, why do you think there are more blind spots with the Jewish community than pretty much any other marginalized group in this country, specifically when it comes to activism?
We're a small community. Jews only reached the population that we were before the Holocaust in, I believe, 2010, which sounds like a long time ago, but for when you think about when it happened to when it finally reached the same size of population, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I also think that, Israel is an interesting point of conversation for a lot of people, and that comes with a whole other set of things that I don't have the right answer for,
Right.
and I'm not an expert on. So a lot of people are kind of like, well, they got this country, right? Like they're fine. And we flow and we camouflage into other spaces. I mean, most people are very surprised when I tell them I'm Jewish, and I'm like, I at this point have it very public because I do want people to understand this has been a big part of my journey and the things that I've processed, even though I may not look what you have stereotyped as what someone Jewish looks like, right? Like
Yeah,
that in itself is kind of anti-Semitic.
for
What does a
sure.
Jew look like? We come in all shapes, sizes, colors, hair textures,
Yeah.
like it's just
Yeah.
everything. So I think for a lot of people, it just hasn't been something that they've been exposed to. And that's why there's another, big blind spot around the community. And Jews have been very insular. Like when you look at our history, there's been so much hardship. And so Jews tend to keep to Jews. And I don't even think I realized it, but some of my like majority of my best guy friends specifically are Jewish. And I was like, oh, like that's definitely something. And I need to like think about why that is.
Hmm.
Um, my partner is Latin and Catholic. So like we get interesting conversations and talk about different things. And he's from Latin America. So, he didn't really get exposed to Jews. It's just like there's not a ton of Jews everywhere.
Yeah. So then I mean, I completely agree with you. The population is very small. I don't even think the percentage is like, it's like 3%, if not even
It's
that.
very small. I don't
It's
know the exact number,
Yeah,
but
but
it's
it's
very
super, super
small.
small. And I was
Yes.
personally shocked to learn that. I was like, whoa, because like one of my friends said to me, like, even the amount of Jewish people in the world, like some people have more Instagram followers, which is
Yes.
wild to think
Yes.
about. So, yes, I do think exposure to the Jewish community and being educated about history within the Jewish community is a huge, huge thing. So, where we are now,
Mm,
with now anti-Semitism at the forefront of the conversation, thanks to Kanye, but
mm.
still, I'm glad it is at the forefront of the conversation. What is your hope coming out of this?
My hope is that people continue to realize that we're all just humans trying to feel seen, heard, understood, and loved. When I spent 4 years traveling the world, I went to some of the wealthiest places with some of the wealthiest people, into some of the most poor, just like I think so many people forget that like having access to a refrigerator and a toilet is
Mm,
privileged.
wow.
And to go into places, the slums of Cambodia, of Kenya, of Brazil, and really see the way people are existing and living and having joy still really kind of smacks you across the face. And you're like, all of this, like everything is just, what is it for? And this is kind of like a big, lofty humanity like answer, but I really do hope that more people just like realize like we're just people. We're just people that want to feel all the things that you want to feel the same way, that you want your family to do well and be healthy and find success and love. Um, and that it's not a perfect community, just like any community, right? Like the nuance has left so many spaces and conversations, and it's like we all have work to do. None of us are perfect. I don't want to
Right.
be perfect. Perfect is unobtainable. It is boring. It is the death to like creativity and interesting conversations. And so for me, I do hope that more people start to ask questions and realize like, well, maybe I don't know anyone Jewish in my own personal life. And like, why is that? Is that because there's no one here? And like, why is there no one here? Um, a lot of people still don't understand like the real effects of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Going into a concentration camp really does something to you. Like seeing it and being present in those spaces, it's like I think you can't help but just feel the energy that is still present in those places. But those are so far away for so many people,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that need to change. But at the core of all of this, like we have enough of everything for everyone to be okay. We've just really done a great job marketing as if there's not, and that we need
Yes.
more. And so for me, I guess the big thing is I just hope more people start to remember like you don't know what you don't know.
Amen. And sound advice. You are just a beautiful soul, Barrett, and I'm really glad that we got a chance to chat. Please tell everyone where they can follow you when you are on social media, not taking a break, and how they can follow all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Of
You are such a
course.
joy and I'm so privileged to follow you and hear
Mm,
your voice and so grateful to connect. So thank you for what you're doing.
thank you.
You can find me on all social media: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all the stuff at Barrett, Barrett, Paul, Pall. And yeah, nice and easy. But like, even as I say this, I remember like my last name's not really my last name. Like it was shortened Ellis Island from something else because it was too Jewish.
Oh, wow.
And I don't even know what that was. I just know that
Oh,
it was
man.
shortened. So like
That's
even
so
that, I have
interesting.
to sit and be like, oh right, like there's anti-Semitism just like in my
And
identity every
yeah.
day, all the time.
Wow. Have you tried to find the history of your last name?
I've done a little bit of digging. I've done like 23andMe. Comes back that I'm like, my whole life, my parents were Jewish. I was like, what does that mean? Like, what countries are we from? Like, there's this, in third grade, it's like you find out where your ancestry is. And my
Yeah.
parents are like, we're Jewish, we're American, we've been here for a long time. And I'm like, okay, cool. 23andMe comes back. It's like you're 96.1% Ashkenazi Jew and a giant blue wave over like all of Eastern Europe and Russia. I'm like, what does that
You're
mean?
like, thanks.
So it's probably like Polinsky or Palabowski, something
Mm,
probably like this. My mom is Goldberg, like that's real Jewish. So
I love it. Well, Barrett, thank you so much. You are a joy, and we're going to keep fighting the good fight together.
absolutely. Thank you again for
Of
having me and
course.
for all
Thank
that you're
you.
doing.
And to the listeners, thanks so much for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. And join us next week for a brand new conversation. Take care.